So in this video, I want to talk about social services and just thoughts on it. I don't know many cases, and therefore I know that I know not to be too judgmental on it. I know that they completely failed me because I wanted to raise my sister's kid and they refused and never really gave me any explanation. They didn't give me a proper test, and they have made zero attempt for me to see this child ever since. And I went to the courts, and it was a complete joke, basically, that everything seemed to be going fine until they read something and then afterwards said that, well, the decision is no, and they didn't explain it. So I don't know what was on that piece of paper. I don't know why they said no. I don't know why they made out that because I was questioning them, why is this answer no? And they didn't respond. They said, well, we've just explained to you, and you hadn't just explained to me. You just went silent for a minute. So I'm not too sure what went on in their brain, or what why. I feel like the elite or Illuminati might be behind it, paying them off to keep Leo away from me. So because of this, I feel like I can't be too judgmental over my specific case. But there is some weird catch where they say that these joke courts that they've set up are legally bind, and that if you expose it or go public with it, that big consequences can happen. And basically, this is just a way of covering up their crimes, I believe. I believe that social services is nothing more than a business that try to make money off people who have a question mark on whether or not they can look after kids. There's a lot of people that assume, oh, there's so many terrible parents out there, you got to keep kids safe, but they use this as a way of harassing people and saying maybe they do need a bit of help, maybe they do a bit of encouragement, but a good way to handle this would be to say, okay, these people probably need a break. So we're going to, every once a week, we're going to take the child off them just for one day so that they can get a proper night's sleep. If you are thinking that someone needs help, this is how to actually help them. You say, we don't think that you're coping very well, and we're going to take the child off you just for one day a week, and then you'll give it back so you have 24 hours. That is helping. What is not helping is to start saying, oh, we need to have weekly meetings and planning. Like before Sophie's child, in both cases, before Sophie's child was she's had three, but with the second two ones, the first one, there was a problem because she ran away from the first one, and you could see that there was social services tried to get her to come back, and she didn't. I think she was scared off by social services, and I can't blame social services, because at the end of the day, she did run off and she didn't come back. So, I knew that there was something wrong with her. But after that, there was some sort of register on her, and I feel they failed me completely in the first case, because all I needed to do is see Sophie with a child for a few hours to realize that her attention span when it comes to children is not there. Hence, I would understand. But instead, I didn't. There was no communication, nothing. I felt very like they had absolutely no intention of trying to explain to me that Sophie can't look after children, and therefore a whole year after she spent 6 months not being around the child and tried to get custody, and I was just getting frustrated over hearing these, oh, court says another 3 months, and we'll know another 3 months, and then it just kept pushing back. I was getting angry and angry about like what's going on. This is supposed to be social services. Do you know what social means? Social means talking. So you go through all the family members to make sure they know. And there was no talking, no explanation, no nothing. I think my sister did get a form, and I did get hold of it by having to contact her, but social services had absolutely nothing to do with helping me at all. They were not social. Anti-social services is what it was for me. And because of this, when Sophie had her second child, I was completely unaware that Sophie was not capable of looking after children, because the social services was antisocial, had no ability to make any communication between the families to explain, this girl cannot do it. And, if you want to see evidence of this, come to the house, come to the bit where she managed to get some trials in the call center. And I'm sure if I would have seen her in the call center with a child, I might have questioned it. The thing is, though, her attention span, the maximum is about an hour and a half. And therefore, if she would have had if she would have had an hour meeting in the call center and I would have just watched an hour, I would have just seen an hour of her being attentive. But yeah, she did tell me that there was a few times where she had 2 hour things, but she got bored after an hour and a half. And when I heard things like that, I felt like she's getting bored after an hour with being with her child. Then I feel like maybe social services are right, but I never saw it. I never really saw it for myself, and so I was helping my mum fight for custody, and I feel like I was stupid for trying to help my mum and sister when they were completely incapable. And I feel the reason why I had no ability to realize that they were completely incapable is because I was never involved, or social services were never social towards me. Hence, I never got to find the truth out about how their inabilities. So, I feel like they failed me on the first child. But yeah, when it came to the second one, again, I spent 9 months looking forward to it, thinking that if Sophie does lose custody, it's fine, I'll have it. And as soon as the child was born, a week before, they failed me on this ridiculous 1 hour test full of lies. I wrote a 12-page essay. They never contacted me back, never made any attempt. They said, if you want to go to court, you have to contact this person. And I did contact this person, and I did get, I managed to, through many emails, trying to get some, a link that I had to, and then fill out a form. And then the courts did send me one email that ended up going into my junk mail. And I don't even know how I found my junk mail, because I never checked my junk mail, and somehow I managed to find it. And there's hundreds of emails going through my junk mail, because there's spam companies that just don't give a shit about destroying accounts by putting lots of junk email through them. But yeah, it was the whole process was incredibly messy. I felt social services had no interest in helping me whatsoever, because they were far more interested in seeing this child as just a way of making money. My mum got 6 weeks of constant tests and analysts coming to her house and having these big long discussions. I mean, you just need to look at her house. It looks like a garage. It looks messy. She looks mad. She's mad and batty. And an intelligent person would be able to talk to her for an hour to know that she could not look after a child by herself. And an intelligent person would be able to have like a 2-day test on my sister to know that she cannot look after children by herself. Her attention span last year was about half an hour. This year it's probably about an hour and a half. So she's definitely better, but she can't be alone with a child for a certain period of time. And because her attention span will just fade, and she'll lose interest. But why did social services give my mum such an extensive long test, weeks and weeks and weeks, when she was easily going to fail? Why did social services let Sophie go into this very expensive program where she gets a house and monitoring and people watching over her, and every time she misses a feed, they'd wake her up and stuff like that? I mean, how many things did she actually make? How many mistakes did she make for them to realize that she is not going to do this if she wasn't being, if the only reason why she's feeding her child every 4 hours is because she's being watched and monitored, then she'll never be able to leave that program. Hence, there's no point of her being in this program, because the whole point of being in this program is to prove that she can do it. And if you need to be prompted and monitored and having, wake up, the child needs to be fed, you would think that the baby crying would wake you up, but it doesn't, because it turns into background sound. If you're constantly hearing sort of the baby making sounds, it turns into background noise, and it doesn't wake you up, but she thinks it does, and she didn't use the alarm clocks. And I don't know how many mistakes she made, but I just feel like the whole thing was just an opportunity to make money. We don't know if this girl can do it or not, so we're going to put her through an extensive, long, expensive thing where we get a whole team of people around the clock to monitor and see what she's doing, when I think every single day she was failing, and people just were too busy trying to make money out of the situation that they didn't care. They didn't care about me and the fact that I could look after a child, and that if the child was with me, they didn't need to spend any of this money. And all the meetings that they had before the child was born, I mean, that's completely irrelevant. If a person is not capable of doing it, or looking after a child by themselves, say if the dad has gone away and this person is going to have to raise the child by themselves, a one day meeting with this woman, you would have known she can't do it. So why are you having week after week after week, making sure, even before the child was born, she was having about 3 or 4 meetings a week with these people. And these meetings are boring. You just spend the whole time on the computer. I don't even know what they're talking about. Rubbish. And then spending most of the time flapping with the cameras. It's a complete waste of time and a complete waste of energy. And if it was me, I would do something completely different. If a person has a question mark on whether or not they can look after the child, you have a couple of visits, you tell them what to do, and then you come back a month later. And if they haven't, do nothing. Do absolutely nothing. And if you come back and find that the baby's 2 weeks away from being born, they haven't got a cot, they haven't got anything in store, they haven't got clothing, then you know that they have failed. And you go, they have a meeting, you make sure they're eating right, you make sure that they're doing things that are keeping the child keeping the fetus healthy. And then you come back a few weeks before the thing's born. Have they got all this ready? Now, if they haven't got all this ready, then there's no point of doing, constant meetings and because they failed. They've failed. You should not need to guide these people into knowing how to, what you need to have a child. They should know. They should instinctively do it. That their instinct should be, the child is coming. I'm going to get the room ready. I'm going to do this, and you can help them, tell them that you need to do these things. But if you're having to have regular, 2 meetings a week to make sure that they're, it's just unnecessary. It's unnecessary because you could see if they need so much encouragement and so much prompting, then they're not going to be able to do it when the child is finally here. And therefore, all those meetings that they had before the child was born, I felt like they were all irrelevant. Just basics, teach them how Sophie to eat properly and stuff, and yeah, and I think the focus should be when the child. I think if you've got someone that's got a question mark on their head, you need to have some sort of computer system where the hospitals don't let a mother leave. If there's a potential that this mother is on the social services list, they're not allowed to leave the hospital. I think what you should do, if there's a question mark on someone's head, is not let them leave the hospital. Take them and the child to do just a week assessment somewhere. Don't prompt them. Don't tell them, they need to feed the child this much every 4 hours. Tell them at the beginning what they need to do, and then just let them live how they would, no prompting. And if they aren't keeping an eye, if they are walking away from the child, if they are doing this, then just fail them and say, right, you're not having this child because you didn't do all the things that you needed to do to keep this child safe, and therefore we need to take the child away. And then you say, we're not having any more meetings. We don't need any more meetings. You failed. Now we have to wait either 6 months. So you can have like a 6-month pause. You failed that week assessment. So we're going to have 6 months. Maybe we'll have another week in 6 months time. And then you go back and have another week. But the idea of having like a 3-month excessive, in fact, they're going to do a 6-month with this new couple, with Marco and this. He does not need a 6 month. He's got 3 kids. He's done this before. He knows, I think he definitely didn't need telling, because my sister copies people, right now when she's with him and around him, she copies him, and he will probably be thinking there's nothing wrong with her because she's just like me. This is how I used to think about my sister when I was very young. She was copying me. I thought then therefore she was similar to me. And then when she found George when I was 6, I think I was 19 and she would have been 6. She was 15, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So I would have been 19 and she would have. So when she met George, she suddenly started shaping herself around him. And I didn't see anything problem or any wrong because she was just shaping herself around him. And therefore, that's the sort of thing. But when she's alone and she's isolated, she might start copying the baby, which is not good because the baby cannot look after a baby. So if she starts copying a baby, that's a bad thing. But this whole how social services are doing it right now, I just feel like the whole thing is just a money making opportunity, and I think it's taking advantage of situations. If someone doesn't have a strong connection, then this might not bother them, but it does bother the family around them. And I want to know how many other experiences people have had. I want, for my own sake of mind, I feel like I've been putting so much anger towards social services over this, but the only way to calm my anger that I've been feeling, not over rejecting Sophie, but in fact giving Sophie as much shock. How come I was able to recognize that she couldn't do it within a couple of days, and yet it took them 3 months? And they managed to make it. I know it's not just about the money, but it is because that's £50,000 that you could have spent somewhere else and not have to, trying to help a mother that can't look after a child and doesn't even seem interested 50% of the time. It's just she doesn't appreciate stuff as well. I don't think she appreciates stuff. And then to think that you want to try and do the same thing to Marco too, it's like you're sort of almost like you're taking all the problems that Sophie has and trying to say because Sophie has these problems, Marco therefore must also have these problems, and that's just total. It's just abuse. It's total abuse, and I don't trust social services, and my view on them now is very, very low, and I really want to speak to other people to know their circumstances, and I want to go to their house, see what their house is like, and explain to them. I want people have had their child forcibly taken away and put into foster care, and I want to speak to them and thinking like how long, or maybe how long has it been that your child has been foster care? Why couldn't you do it? I mean, if you can't look after a child because you can't keep up with the 4 hour feeds, well, after 6 months, the child no longer needs 4 hour feeds, or maybe they probably just need one wake up in the middle of the night or something. But you know, so I feel like, because I heard this one case, a client that came to me, and he said that the child was with the mother, and the mother was smoking when social services came in. She was smoking weed or something, and they took the child away. And even though he is nothing like the mother, he spent 2 years trying to get his kids back, and he seemed like a really genuine person. And I just, how many people have they done this to? So they take a bad mother who makes a mistake, and there's a father that really wants the child, but they say, oh, you're just a father, fathers can't do much, and I'm not going to give you this child. Why? Because we're making lots of money out of him. We're making money out of the children. And then instead of just giving the child back, oh, there's a process, we can't just give the child back. No, because the child has been adapted now to this situation, and now we need to slowly, oh, fuck that, go in there, grab the child, get out. That's how they adapt. You fucking change their situation. I went to 7 schools, okay? They didn't say, oh, sorry, you've got from one school to another. You can't just go from one school to another. No, you have to slowly work in. So you'll do some classes on this school and some classes on this school, and then we'll work your way. No, you take yourself out of one school and you put yourself in another school. Now, why can't you do the same with home? You've taken yourself out of one home environment to put yourself in the other. The fact that they think that there needs to be some sort of 2-year process to change this. This is just them delaying. This is just them delaying what they're doing so they can continue making money out of things. And I really don't think social services are doing things properly, and I have so much hatred towards them right now. And because I'm God, I shouldn't have this hatred towards people that are supposed to be just helping kids, because I don't think they're helping kids. I think they're abusing families by putting blame on the families, and they're not helping them. Helping them is to say, right, we don't think you can do this, so some of the time the child's going to be with you and some of the child's going to be with me. That way you can get a break. This is me helping you. We don't think you can do this 24/7, 7 days a week, so we're going to take the child off you just for 1 day a week, so that way you get a break. Now that is helping them. Not helping them is saying, if you don't do everything that we're saying, if we come round to the house and find that you've gone to the shops and left your partner with the child, my sister probably can look after and be very attentive for a half an hour, so maybe that's not that bad. But the fact that social service will put some things that you can't do that, when really Marco's with Sophie all the time, so he's got ability to work out when Sophie's attentive, when Sophie's not, and I feel like social service just have so much distrust towards the people they're supposed to be helping, that it's not helping them, it's hurting them, and it's abusing them, and they don't see it as abuse because they see themselves in a way as being better. We're social services, we're working. My sister, she's now getting a job in a nursery. So they've said for 2 years that she cannot look after children, and she's actually got a job. She actually got the job in the nursery. I mean, I don't really know the extent of it. Do they realize that Sophie shouldn't be alone with a child? But in nurseries, it's usually like 2 or 3 helpers, and then I think she should definitely take it. She needs to learn this skill of being attentive. I think if she's being paid to do a job, it would be different. I feel like she gets bored if it's just her and a child. She would get bored in that situation because she's not being paid. Whereas if she's actually being paid per hour to look after a child, she might actually see it more as a job, hence more of a routine, which is, I guess, more of an autistic thing, to follow instructions and stuff. But yeah, I feel that something is very, very wrong in social services, and if I'm God, I should have a good opinion on what's going on, and therefore I think it's be important before I rise, before I become famous and known, that I actually speak random. I don't trust, if you tell me which people I should speak to, I'm not going to trust that, because I think you're going to just lead me the people that haven't been abused. I want there to be a big long 500 list, and I want to randomly choose which ones that I want to go and see, and I'll randomly choose people, and I'll go and talk to them, You know, how long did it take you to get your kids back? Why did it go? Do you think it was unfair? How many meetings did you have? Were these meetings helpful? And I want to, if every single one of these people say no, 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 then you know that this is an abusive system and something is very wrong with it.